Guitar freaks, don't try this at home without adult supervision. Steve Howe on guitar and percussion. Clap from the Yes album. You're listening to SiriusXM Volume. We'll be back after this break.
You're listening to An Artist Confidential with Yes.
Yes, give it up for yourselves and the folks watching us on Facebook Live. When just after we finished that version of Clap, Steve mentioned he wanted to give us a little extra background on the song.
Besides, I was totally, I still am influenced by Chet Atkins. The time I wrote Clap, my first son was born, and he's here tonight again, Dylan Lee Howe.
So give him a applause, please.
Let's give it up.
Actually, I was always curious, on basically a studio album, that track was recorded live at the Lyceum in London in July 1970. Why did you use the live version?
Well, because it sounded live, and somehow the studio version, I don't think we have a really completed one that we approved, or a mastered one. We just felt it wasn't the same, and because I'd been playing it on stage and everybody liked it, so they said, well, put it live, So it was a lovely opportunity, and Eddie Offord recorded it on a Revox going around at 15 IPS.
Old school technology.
Yeah, it was very old school and warm, but so that's the story. We just preferred that kind of. It made it a difference. It gave it a contrast, if you like, from the rest of the album. It's quite interesting how when Clap ends, it goes into Starship Trooper. That's such a great marriage.
Because it's such a sweet little hoedown with that really, as you say, the Chet Atkins thing, and then you go right into outer space. It's a really brilliant segue.
Roll on, Chet Atkins.
Now, one thing, from what I understand, you gentlemen are also going to make an announcement right about now regarding some imminent future activity. So I'm going to throw the floor to you.
Well, I'll throw in a little, and that's it. Yeah, we've got dates coming up. We're going to be releasing them in the morning on Yes World, and it's it's a Yestival, which was inspired by a show we did in Philadelphia a couple of years back, and we think this is a really nice show. We've got Todd Rundgren opening for us, and also the Carl Palmer ELP tribute. So it's got its styles.
A full evening of chord changes and subdivided rhythms.
A lot of chords in that show.
Carl will be doing a tribute to Keith Emerson and Greg Lake within that, so it's going to be, there's going to be some great, I think, in the whole show. And
the kind of show, because we've been doing album series, and we're not going to be doing albums on this show. We're going to be doing, interesting idea I had, and the guys seem to like it now, is that we stop at every album from Yes in 1969, I believe the first album actually came out. Right along to Drama, we stop on every album and do one song from every album. So to kind of present an A to Z of that era of Yes, we've got 9 albums to look at. So there'll be, really contrasting visuals all night long. And the music, what I love about it too, because I was hoping to do this with the album series, we never did, is the chronologicalness of this music. It develops, when we start with one song, go to the next one, the group's kind of growing, it's changing. And it'll be like a story we're telling,
because it really is an unfolding story as you look at the, I just remember, I got the first record and I saw that line and I thought Peter Banks was a wonderful guitar player. Bill Bruford just blew my mind, he basically said, David, don't be a drummer. You can't do this. And then, of course, the story that unfolds with him later in Crimson and the way these things sort of spread out and then keep coming back together.
I better start doing my homework.
Yeah.
Really, you have some learning to do.
I guess.
But have you actually figured out which songs, or how do you figure that out?
We've kind of got that map. We've got an idea, and if we find one doesn't work, we'll pick another song from that album. But I think some of the shape of it's starting to sink into our minds, and we'll try and add a little surprise here and there, something else that we can.
The development of Yes from the very beginning and how it did progress through each album. So I think that's going to be very interesting for us to see and hear that.
Because one of the songs, actually, I believe it was on the first album, was that cover of the Beatles, Every Little Thing.
Oh, yes.
Which is a great version.
It's an amazing version of it. And the thing that's really cool about that version is if you sort of, with all of the instrumental, elegance and intricacy, it runs as fast as punk rock. That is a badass record. It really, really is.
I think Yes played that in 2003, around that time. We added it to a show. And
The 35th
the
anniversary.
35th, it might have been, yes. And it was a great song to play. Yeah, we must think about that.
How did you actually pick out covers in the day? Because you were doing Stephen Stills every day.
No, when I joined, I told the band not to play covers anymore. I said, why'd you keep covers?
But how did John or Chris talk about that?
It was a wonderful thing because we proved it on America. Yes did it again, in the era when I started. But as a concept, the group needed to start writing the whole album, none of these covers. And that's why America was a special album we did for the Age of Atlantic, special thing that Amit asked us to do. But I mean, the artists do it really well. If you're going to cover a song, and I think Vanilla Fudge, well, for me, were possibly where some of the ideas came from, because they never did a song and you went, oh, it just sounds like it used to. They always blew it out.
They rewrote
burned
it.
They rewrote bits and really. I think that's what Yes were after, and some of the arrangement skills that Yes combined, the people combined, showed in that and in America. It's proved that we can do the same thing we do with our music to other people's, and why shouldn't we?
No, I must admit, America on Stage is one of the greatest songs to play. All the different pitches at that
not a bad
time. You
songwriter,
guys were
that
doing
Paul
it
Simon.
right at that time.
Kids got talent.
Yeah, the kids, you go for
Hang of
it.
it eventually, yeah.
A few good words in there, a nice chorus, but
A lovely song, and because it mentions, New Jersey Turnpike, things like that always had a great, but they loved it in Europe as well when we played.
because it was interesting when I heard that I had that original sampler, The Age of Atlantic, when it first came out, and hearing a band like Yes perform this song and then referencing the New Jersey Turnpike, I'm thinking, I'm on the Turnpike all the time. It doesn't sound this elegant,
Yeah. Well, I'm very pleased to say Paul Simon did notice it, and he did tell me he liked it very much, and he also liked the guitar solo a bit, which he didn't write. But it was a wonderful excursion, and I actually wish we found time to do that more often.
That was the first song that Yes did with Cabra in it. So you're wrong, Alan.
Oh yeah,
I'm a Cabra.
We
had later.
Yeah.
Well, I did one before.
No, we're saying
Every little thing she knows. That whole thing before.
Did that have a camera in it? No, you were saying that America had a camera in.
yeah.
Sorry, we're just
Yeah, so
this is real. This is real inside
Now I'm
baseball
thinking
here.
about the video on the Seine.
on the River Saint. Yeah.
Insane.
Well, one of the things this really struck me when I was at JFK Stadium in 1974 for that relayer show was that, I'm watching you perform these really intricate, long pieces and thinking, how do they remember it all? Because certainly in that era, there were no teleprompters. There was no cue cards. How did you actually memorize the pieces? And this is really true, I guess, in really any age of the band, with Jeff and yourselves. How do you internalize all of that music to be able to play it not only, not want to say perfectly, but with real soul and passion, and still be able to have room for improvisation?
I think if you love the music, I know the way that I love the music, that it becomes one, and it's part of your DNA and it's mind. And then if you take that to the next level of playing, you figure it out. And, if you were a kid like me, you wanted to play bass really good, you played along to Chris Squire, and then that stuff's ingrained. So, for instance, when they did say, let's play Ritual, I said, I got this.
I think
you just sort of remember it.
Yeah, I think part of the reason is the inception of the music. You play it so many times, and part of the growing part, it gets ingrained in there.
Yes.
Yeah, especially
And the iPad helps.
iPad, nowadays.
In 2017,
What helped really was that we just recorded Relayer, so to go out and play it was really fresh in our minds. But one's got to remember that in a classical concert, the soloist never reads music. They have to know everything, from the beginning to the end. And so really, your question could be, well, that's what we expect of ourselves, but in a way, it's what any musician should expect of themselves. They should be able to remember music, and we have this kind of doctrine of homework. So when we get together, we don't just fall together and say, "Oh, how's that song go? We come in, everybody knows their part. So then it's like the jigsaw, you put it together and practice how you put it together. But you've got to know
it's
the
like
part.
it's like in the theatre as an actor learns his lines, and you learn your lines and you deliver them.
Well,
What I find interesting though is that after you do learn it, it has its difference every night in its own way.
Yeah.
So there's still this arrangement, this structure, but within that every night there's these rules, and that it makes it interesting and exciting.
Well, I think we actually have to go to one more song, and since it's a fairly long one, this will be an example of how we internalize Yes music. This is, I'm just going to tell you, song. It's from Fragile, and it was a massive hit in 1972, Roundabout.